The previous basket is under review.
Welcome back to Stats by Will and Jim, the college basketball podcast that focuses on the numbers. We are proudly a part of Basket Under Review, the very best college basketball community going. Please check out the site and the Discord if you haven't yet. Only $10 a month gets you access to all kinds of written content from some of the best writers on the sport, like my co-host here, Will Warren, was Brian Ralph, Jordan Majeski, some terrific guest writers, all of whom love college hoops. You can also tune into The Burp, Basket Under Review podcast with Eamon Brennan and Tate Frazier. Folks, I am your host, Jim Root, here at Stats, joined as always by Will Warren. We got a regular standard in-season episode for you today. We're going to get a little trivia. Then we're going to go back and forth with the 7 numbers that stood out to us, our little stat rotation, back and forth from what we saw over the week that was. Will, first, just, how are you doing? How are you feeling with conference play in full swing? We're back into the at least consistent schedule of when games are.
Pretty good. I had a great weekend watching some hoops, watching some football. I'm sorry for you.
There wasn't any football played this weekend. I don't know what you're talking about.
There was last night. I don't know if you saw. America's leading villain is dead. So I was pleased to see, there is some justice in this world. But anyway, I'm talking about the Steelers, not their quarterback or anything. No, the weekend that was really good. We're going to get into it. We set a couple of records this weekend. I don't know if you know this, and we'll touch on what those are exactly. But this has been a really fun start in that, one, we are finally getting results that I just think are making the sport more interesting. Like, we'll touch on it. Michigan losing at home to Wisconsin. I don't think it's like a 5-alarm fire or anything for Michigan or any of that. I think Wisconsin had just simply had a really hot shooting day. But we needed those type of results to sort of draw teams at the top back to the crowd a little bit. It was getting a little like we were just kind of waiting for somebody to stumble, somebody to mess up. And we finally got that. We got some other really interesting results this weekend we'll dive into. And just a lot of cool stuff for the path forward this season.
Yeah, Arizona's been incredible, but I didn't want this season to turn into like a Michigan march to the title undefeated, beat everybody by 15 or 20 consistently all season. They have shown much more mortality recently, and that makes the season more interesting. So I am also pretty jazzed up about that. No offense to Michigan in general. I just want there to be a little bit more excitement and intrigue and mystery as we head toward the postseason. All right, well, let's start with the stat of the day. This is not as much a trivia question. It's not going to be something you can really probably rack your brain and calculate unless you've got incredible mental listing and math capabilities. It's just kind of a check-in that I think is worth noting. And the question is, using Bart Torvik's T-Ranketology as of Monday night. So we're recording this Tuesday morning. It's out Wednesday morning. So there could be a little bit of shifts of this on Tuesday night. How many teams are there from each multi-bid league? So it's obviously not a perfect encapsulation of conference strength. It's really about, who has a tournament worthy resume. But I think it's a fun check-in based on, last year the SEC had 14 teams, and the Big East is always, is it going to be a 3-bid league, whatever. So I'm curious where you stand, just general guesses for each conference here.
Okay. I'm gonna guess the Big Ten has the most, just up front here. So I'm going to say 10 for the Big Ten.
Ding, ding, ding. Look at him go, folks. Look at him go.
I am going to say 8 for the SEC. A&M would be the swing piece in my head.
I guess I should pull up which teams are which. It's 9 for the SEC, right?
Okay.
Or as of
so that means Auburn is for sure in then.
Yep.
Okay, so that's 2. Big 12. Big 12 is tricky because you think it's a lot better league than it is.
This is very funny. It actually shifted since I did this on Monday night. It's Tuesday morning, and there were no relevant Monday night results. So I don't know why. Just the underlying math. But we're gonna go with what I had written down for Monday night. So
go with that. Okay.
SEC 9, Big 10 10 is what you've gotten so far. Big
12. I'm gonna say 7, and I'll say that because of their resume, UCF's predictives don't matter as much.
The actual number is 8 for the Big 12.
They've got
Oklahoma State sneaking in as the very last team. And I don't believe
Come on.
Oklahoma State was in last time I was doing this. UCF and Oklahoma State both in the most updated version. So technically the one where Tuesday morning, Oklahoma State's the last team in, and the Big 12 has 9. But as I did it on Monday night, the Big 12 had 8. So we'll see. I would guess that's much more realistic towards the end of the season that it will get 8.
Okay, rest of them. Big East 4.
Yep, Big East 4 is correct.
That kind of feels like a pretty clear 4 too. ACC is going to be better this year in this. I'm trying to count in my head who would likely be in.
Yeah, I figured this would be the tough part of it. Is like, can I name every team resume wise and
I'm going to
add
say
up all the
8.
at-large bids?
8 ACC teams get in.
Well done, Will. Yes, 8 for the ACC.
I was going to say 7, and then I remembered SMU exists.
Yeah, I think this is maybe the most notable part of it. Just the fact that the ACC is this much improved. Last couple of years, it's been kind of a tough place to get bids. They had 4 last year, and you could argue whether North Carolina deserved to be in or not. They had 5 the year before, but that's partially because NC State won the ACC tournament. Trending for 8 or even 9 this year, potentially. I believe I saw a couple projections where they might have 9 slip in. Just a lot stronger middle class in the ACC this year, so credit to them. And then we've got 2 other multi-bid leagues, Will.
Those would be, oh man, is it the A10? Is the A10 one?
It is not the A10. Apologies to the A10.
Okay, so it's the WCC. It's Gonzaga and St. Mary's. Wait a minute.
WCC
3?
with 3. Santa
Clara,
Clara sneaking in as one of the last 4 teams in. Yes.
So then it would be Mountain West for the other. And that one, obviously, USU.
Yeah, if you want to challenge yourself and try to get the second one for the Mountain West, I like that.
I've got a feeling it's New Mexico.
Wow, you're good at this. Look at him go.
I was going to go San Diego State, and then I thought, and I was like, well, New Mexico's been coming up in the predictives lately. They've got more wins. Are they like a first 4 team in this thing?
They're the last bye, so just ahead of Kentucky is the last team to play in Dayton.
I'm sure no chance the committee would do that. You think they're going to let Kentucky go to Dayton in this scenario?
You don't like Kentucky UCLA as a Dayton matchup on Tuesday night?
Okay. DJ, run that back. I think that could be really good. But
yeah,
New Mexico, that's a classic. Like, we're required to give this conference we don't like X number of bids in our heads, so we're going to shove 2 of these teams to Dayton.
Yeah, so Bart's got New Mexico with a 57% chance to make it. San Diego State only with a 30% chance. So there's definitely some projection in there, and resumes to be sorted out. But
in Dayton could be pretty spicy.
A little West Coast action, yeah, that'd be fun. Then you get a lot of of course they put the bid majors against each other. The committee is rigged, etc.
Yeah, but then one of them goes through.
Exactly, and one of Kentucky and UCLA does not get to make the round of 64. So there's spin zones either way, depending how you want to look at it. So the biggest part of that takeaway for me was the ACC and just how improved they are as a league, getting way more bids this year. And I think even like John Shires acknowledged it. He's like, "Oh, we're actually getting tested in the ACC this year." Duke remains undefeated atop the league, but still having a little bit more trouble than they did last season when they went, I believe, 19-1. So yeah.
Yeah, they just did the 1 loss. Okay, wait. Let me guess the 1 seeds now, and then we'll do your home field read. And then I have to also post my top 3 celebrations of Wild Card Weekend. Number 1, always the seatbelt. We'll get to number 2 and 3 later. I am going to say the 1 seeds are obviously Michigan and Arizona.
Yep.
Iowa State.
Correct. There's a difference here between bracket matrix and T-Rankitology. For the final.
I would say Gonzaga is maybe the final one.
No Gonzaga.
Is it UConn?
UConn is the last 1 seed per the bracket matrix, but
is it Vandy?
It is Vanderbilt per Bart Torvik. Yes, rather impressive that Vandy has climbed all the way up there with their undefeated resume. Getting that Alabama win over the past week was rather important. With just establishing legitimacy at the top of their resume. So it's surprising to see them at the top final 1 seed, but maybe well earned by Mark Byington's Commodores.
Mm-hmm.
All right, before we get into the 7 stat rotation where we go back and forth discussing some of the big numbers of the week, want to give a shout out to Home Field. Home Field Apparel is the best place to get your college sports gear for the current college basketball season. They got all kinds of unique logos, even sweet retro ones on a bevy of amazingly comfortable gear. You've got hoodies, t-shirts, jackets, hats, joggers, whatever it is you can think of, they've got it. Make sure to use promo code BURNER15 for 15% off your first order. That is BURNER15. You save money. They know that you came from us. That's great for everybody. Home field gets a sale. It's a win, 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 as Michael Scott would say it. So BURNER15, Home Field Apparel, wear one for the team.
My father-in-law loves his Tennessee Home Field Apparel Christmas buy. He told me he wore it 3 days in a row, and I was like, don't want to know that. Don't just wash the thing. But I was still happy for him,
Yeah. 3 days. That's when the stink really develops, and you got to throw it in the laundry. That makes sense.
Okay, my other two celebrations of the week. The defensive backs seem to have the edge in the Selly game right now, I would say. Number one, as I mentioned, the seatbelt classic. I'm really liking the 2 thumbs down. That's a great one from the cornerbacks after a pass breakup.
Yep.
Number 3, I'm not 14, so I don't have TikTok, but I gather that this is something. I don't know what it means. For
the listeners at home, Will just covered his face and wagged his other hand. Yes.
Yeah, which is called aura farming. Again, I'm 32. I don't need to know what these things are, but I've noticed it really popping up, and I couldn't really figure out the Bears celebration. I might be a little washed for that one, but something with like the thing. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm 36, so I think you've got it. You're at least closer to the generation than I am.
Does your significant other make you watch like TikToks she really likes?
She does not.
Okay, well, yeah. One of us is winning in life. Anyway.
All right. Yes. Shout out to Home Field. Okay. And shout out to those celebrations from the NFL weekend it was. Okay. Let's get into stats. Will, I'm going to let you lead off, as is our tradition here. What stood out to you from this past college basketball week?
My number is 9. And our first number here, this is a record, at least in the KenPom database, for number of comebacks in a single day of 15 points or greater. There were 9 15-point or more comebacks on Saturday. And I bring this up for 2 reasons. One, this ties the all-time record of February 12th, 2011, which also had 9. 2, this season had already produced the second highest number of comebacks in a single day last week, when there were 7 15-point comebacks on January 3rd. We're already well ahead of pace for a number of huge comebacks in a given season. And there's a lot of different explanations for this. Scoring is obviously way up, efficiency is way up. But it's a little surprising to me that, and we've kind of seen this rubber band effect a bit more in the NBA, where I recall it actually from when your Bucks won the title. I think it was game 5. Phoenix was up like 18 or 20, and that deficit was gone in like 6 minutes. Yep. And that seems to happen. That did not happen nearly as much when I was growing up, I feel. I mean, when teams blew big leads, it felt like a true choke. It did not feel like excellence coming through. Right now, it just feels like you can kind of score, but the other team can score way more and way faster, just because of, maybe it's 3-point emphasis, maybe it's better rebounding, getting to the line more. The sport favors offense more than I think it has possibly in my entire lifetime. We've gone back to stats from like the early 90s where there's like great play-by-play data to show that, per points per game, at least, this is the highest scoring time we've seen in 30 plus years. But I mean, it says something to me that you can have on a single day Belmont coming back from down 25, UNC Wilmington from down 24, Idaho from down 21, James Madison coming back from down 19. The list goes on and on. It really is something to me when Nebraska coming back from 16 down is like the 7th highest or like 7th most notable comeback of the given day. So I'm just curious for your thoughts. What would you pinpoint as the reason for this?
Yeah, I think the scoring efficiency is part of it. The variance of reliance on jump shots. Just, one team can go cold, one team can get hot, and vice versa to start the game. The underdog can come out and make a bunch of shots, and then suddenly the talent completely wears them down over the rest of the game. We're also close to one of the fastest seasons of all time per KenPom's stat trends. I guess some of the late 2019, the late 20 teens we're a little quicker, but we are faster than the past 4 or 5 seasons. It's the most efficient offensive season, so I'm partially blaming that. But yeah, I part of it to me too is also I can't quite identify why. It's just watching these games, and as somebody who has wagered on the sport for a while, I always worry about second halves and the change in the tenor of the game. And hopefully this means maybe some of the teams that are trailing, their coaches are using different defensive wrinkles and making more adjustments based on how they're getting down to start the game. But yeah, I saw this, Trilly brought it up in the Discord, and I think tweeted about it. It's completely wild that there's been this many severe comebacks to this magnitude already, and we're just getting warmed up for the season. There's going to be a whole lot more to come, probably a lot more chaos. And I always joked about this with people who are betting on the NBA. It's like, oh, just wait to see who gets down early and bet the other team or bet that team. Are we getting to that point in college basketball? Maybe we are.
I kind of wonder, just because like it does feel, I don't know if you ever thought about it like this, but I guess this experience from a Tennessee fan, they would be up, like, let's just say 68-59 at the final media timeout, so about 4 minutes left. And in my head, my thought was, okay, it's statistically nigh impossible to go more than about like 15 points per 4 minutes, roughly speaking. Obviously free throws, 3-point variance, yada yada, but like it has to be like a 99.7 percentile outcome to go above 15. So in the back of my head, I'd be like, okay, you get to 75, that's your safe number in that area. And now I don't know if that would be the case. It feels like if you're up 8, for example, at the final media timeout, and you probably need to score 10 more points to feel like uber safe, no matter what happens with the other possessions.
Yeah, some of the, I don't know if guys are better at off the dribble 3-point shooting. So some of those like final minute pull up shots that you're trading free throws for threes. Maybe the team losing is a little more prone to coming back because of the increased ability of guys to knock those down. Maybe that's part of it. Because yeah, you could have the amount of times you see a team score like 12 points just in the final minute, trying to come back playing the free throw game. It is pretty insane at this point in the sport. But yeah, we had a wild Saturday, and I would anticipate more of the same going forward, especially with the volume of games we have in the sport and just seemingly the way the talent is spread across due to the transfer portal. All right, my first thought's a little extended too, Will. It is not one specific number, but somebody, I think I tweeted about St. John's, and they replied that that's got to be the team with the widest gap between predictives and resume type ranking at this point. So I actually went and measured the difference between the net and the wins above bubble, just kind of proxies for predictive ranking and for resume ranking, where WAB covers the resume, net is sort of the predictive, both provided by the NCAA, so they're at least consistent. Some of the biggest gaps for teams that are actually in realistic at-large territory. My Missouri Tigers, number 1. Their net is 34 spots lower than their WAB right now because they were able to pick off a couple teams early in SEC play and got blown out in some other games. Oklahoma State, who we touched on, is the last team in T-Rankatology. They're 32 spots lower than their WAB. Their net is, and then Stanford and George Mason, both with a net 29 spots lower than their wins above bubble. On the other end, Akron has got a net 28 spots higher than their WAB. South Florida, 27. So 2 teams that are outside the P5 and probably going to struggle to get net large. Then the third one here is the one that maybe most worth noting. Iowa. Their net is 25 spots higher than their WAB, which I think tells you that they have done a lot of their work dominating Q4 teams, and that came up this week as they lost at home to Illinois, kind of got blasted on Sunday, ended up making the final score look respectable, but Iowa's got to figure out how to pick up some big wins to go with their advanced analytical metrics right now. Any of those teams stand out too well, or just the general idea of the gap between predictive analytics and actual resume rankings right now?
I actually, while you're bringing up those teams, I don't know if I want to focus on a specific team as much as I do the reverse end of this, which is teams with really good, like you mentioned, Iowa, St. John's too, really good predictive metrics, not so good WAB, resume metrics, what have you. So last year, second Tuesday of January, which is what today is as we're recording, these are just teams like how they were at Torvik at the time. Maryland, 18th, but 49th in WAB. Texas Tech, 19th, 45th. Arizona, you might recall, 20th, 38th in WAB. My favorite one here is BYU, 30th and 70th in WAB. Those teams ended up a 4, 3, 4, and a 6 seed. Generally speaking, predictive is what it says it is. It's predicting how these teams are likely going to do going forward. So, yes, there are occasions where you're going to get, like we had last year with North Carolina, where they do beat all the bad teams and lose to all the good ones. That does happen from time to time. But the law of averages suggests that the more likely case for these teams is they're going to play to that predictive ranking more likely going forward than what their wins above bubble says, short of injury or, some sort of situational unluckiness, whatever that might be. That, I look more towards that for an Iowa or a St. John's as what I think of them than I do necessarily what their resume is right now. Could this be Cope a little bit because Tennessee is on this list? Sure. But I also don't think it's Cope because Florida is on this list. Florida, if you average their resume metrics right now, would be about an 8 seed. But quality-wise, they're, I think, really, once three-point percentage continues to come around, a top 10 team in the sport. And while I don't know that they're going to end up a 2 or a 3 seed, the odds are a lot stronger that they're going to be like a 4 or something than they will an 8. So you play the percentages a little bit here. It's why I remain in on Iowa, in on Indiana, especially. I think Indiana is kind of getting sold short right now. I know that they've beaten up on some of the chaff of the sport, if that's the right term. But I'd still look for them going forward. Is this also me rationalizing putting Nebraska in the sell high list? Yeah, maybe, but fuck it.
They just keep winning, man. The Huskers just keep winning.
They're inevitable. It's like the friggin' Steelers. I was just well, maybe that's a bad time. All right, we'll say it. They're like I can't mention the other team either. Move on.
I'm just laughing thinking about like if UConn gets a 1 seed and Florida is their 8 seed, flipping last year's dynamic there, where Florida's 1 seed, UConn's the 8 seed. I don't think Dan Hurley would want that.
What do you think the spread would be?
Like 2, 3. I don't know.
I think it might be like a 1.5.
Yeah, there's no part of me. I'm certain that every 1 seed would not want Florida to be their 8 or 9, or even a 2 seed want them to be their 7 or 10. The quality of that team is apparent.
Conversely,
a couple others. This
if UCF was your 8,
if
UCF was your 8, you'd be like, oh, thank God.
I can handle that. Yeah, a couple other teams. You mentioned Iowa, St. John's, Florida, and Tennessee. Indiana, like you mentioned, NC State and Kentucky, 2 others where their predictives heavily outpace their WAB right now, even Washington. And then a lot of the non-P5s, like your High Point, Tulsa, George Washington. See if they can find a way to amp up the resume, but obviously they have way fewer opportunities to do so than the Power Conference teams. So I'm curious to see how many, like you said, the resume catches up with the predictives. I could see that being the case for a lot of these teams, even like Louisville or Tennessee, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. All right, Will, back to you for number 2.
This team, I'm not giving them a number. I'm just saying Utah State. I think it's time we give them some flowers. This is currently your 20th ranked team at KenPom, 1 spot behind Tennessee, 3 behind Nebraska, for the record. This is the highest rated Mountain West team since 1-22-23 San Diego State, who made the national championship game. They are freaking awesome. I mean, we kind of thought preseason this would be your standard Utah State team where the offense would make a lot of sense and score a lot, but the defense would struggle to keep up. And that has truly not been the case. They are extremely good on the perimeter, 8th in defensive turnover rate, 6th in steal percentage, even pretty decent on the interior as well. 47% 2-point percentage allowed, which is top 50. I am really intrigued by this team because since they switched to a new starting lineup after their kind of, I wouldn't know if I'd call it a demolition, but it was certainly not a very rosy performance on the road to South Florida, their lone loss of the year. Since they switched to their new lineup, it's only 7 games, but they're 10th at Torvik in that time period, number 1 offensively. I don't think they're going to shoot 65% from 2 the whole season, but it does go to show like just how disgusting they've been on that end. Have held up quite well defensively, despite not being a great defensive rebounding team. And the thing that I like most about them, aside from all that, is just how strong they are in the offensive boards. 38% OREB top 25 in the nation. Even holds up once you remove some of the weaker games from the schedule. I like this team a lot. I think Utah State's legit. There's not anything shooting variance wise that would indicate to me like we're maybe saying a little too much about them more than what they deserve. I think that they are legitimately very good. I mean, we could be in line for them as a 6 seed come March, and that's really exciting to me. I do think like my offer is we should renounce like 10% of the fandom of our respective schools for the year. We could just be Aggies.
I'm fine with that. Get rid of
like a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Sounds way more refreshing than logging too many Mizzou basketball hours. But yeah, in that time since they switched their lineup, they played 2 like tough, actually challenging Mountain West games, and they beat Colorado State by 42, and they went to Boise State and won by 25. I thought that was like a tricky game for them this weekend. Boise had lost 2 big Mountain West games in a row. You think like this is kind of a line in the sand game for them, and they just get absolutely blasted by Utah State. It's a well-coached Utah or Boise State team with size, and Utah State just completely clown them. I think they deserve this love because they just keep climbing. They keep playing better and better. It's really remarkable.
Did you see the bit about the Utah State students at the game?
I did not. No.
Okay, Patrick Mayhorn of the Ag Ship. This is the year to subscribe to a Utah State basketball newsletter. By the way, the Ag Ship is excellent. Boise State posted a promo because I think they are still on winter break or were that anybody with a student ID could get into the game. So that made its way to Utah State Twitter, and their fans started getting tickets. And then Boise State clarified people with a state of Idaho student ID. So like Boise State, Idaho, University of Idaho, whatever. And Utah State instead paid for their students to go to the game. And then, so like the herd went with the team, and then the team went into the stands and took pictures with the herd after. So
that's awesome.
That's awesome. And boy, what a way to step in it by Boise State.
Yes. Yeah. You want to be clarifying that right away, right off the bat. You don't want to open yourselves up to having, especially that fan section. I mean, Utah State is one of the best home courts in the country at the Spectrum. Let them invade your arena in Boise. That's not good. You're gonna get a lot of heavy support from the other opposite direction. So yes, Utah State. Do you think they're going to go on a run in March? What do you think their viability is in the postseason? I'll ask you that quick.
Just because they're better defensively than I think either of us thought they would be, I am rosy on them going into March. I think it's totally plausible for them to get to the second weekend, which now Utah State is a team without a tournament win or has one. I can't remember.
I believe they have one, but I think it's been a long time. Let me.
No. They won 2 years ago over TCU. I just recalled.
Oh yeah, because they played Zach Edey in the second round. That's right.
Poor guys. I think that is their only tournament win in the 64-68 team era, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, their last Sweet 16 appearance was 1970. So it's.
I think they got a real shot, man. I think they got a real shot.
Yeah, they've got guard play. I mean, the MJ Collins shooting renaissance that he's had there compared to his entire career is remarkable, impressive, and they're fun to watch. They move the ball, they knock down shots, they're really, really sharp offensively. So tune into some Mountain West hoops and get Utah State on your TV if you can. All right, I'm going negative for my second one here, Will, and it's a team we've discussed a little bit on this show for their the drama that goes around them. But the number is 7-8, and that is Memphis's worst win-loss start since 2001. Doug McDaniel's been pretty solid, but everybody else, it's been kind of ugly. I saw some of the most loyal Memphis fans on Twitter jumping ship after their most recent loss at FAU over the weekend.
Let me guess which one.
No, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But in a league that is wide open at the top, I genuinely have, I mean, I guess I would lean towards South Florida winning it, but it's wide open here for Memphis to follow up last year's great regular season and win another title. But they already have 2 losses outside the top 100. They are just 2-1 in the league, and who knows how things are going to go moving forward because it was so ugly at FAU on Sunday. There's calls for maybe the end of the Penny era. What do you think, Will? This team it was obviously built poorly. They are way lower in talent than they've been in the past, but it does not look good for the Tigers.
So I was sympathetic to their schedule arguments because you only have to remove 2 quad 4 games. The rest of their schedule has been very tough. They always schedule very tough under Penny. I have always respected that. But there is a such thing as too much too soon. Their offensive efficiency ranking against quad 1 through quad 3 is 178th.
Ugh.
178th. Georgetown, which is roughly as fun to watch as jumping headfirst into a wood chipper, is 121st.
Oh,
That is a Georgetown team shooting 43% from 2 against top 250 teams.
A team that went 1 of 23 an entire half of basketball.
That team has a better offense than Memphis.
Oh, it's bad. If they don't score in transition, it's over. They turn the ball over like crazy, which has always been a flaw of Penny Hardaway teams, just not valuing possessions. And if you don't have shooters like they don't this year, and they don't get to the free throw line like they used to, suddenly it looks really, really ugly. And like they're not out of the top 100. It's not like they've completely cratered, but this is likely to be Penny's worst team at Memphis. Mm-hmm. Very likely to be his first to not get to 20 plus wins. He could still get there, and they could win 13 more games in the American, but it seems unlikely at this stage.
Did you know they play Utah State on Valentine's Day for some reason?
No, I didn't. I wish I would have used that as a transition point from your stat. That's better hosting right there.
I hate it for Utah State. That's a loss.
Yeah,
underdog Penny. It's not going to be fun for them. No, this Memphis team, they're good defensively. I do think they are legit on the defensive end. But when you're as bad as they are on offense, it doesn't matter. Like you said, it's either transition or the hope that like Aaron Bradshaw or Julius Thedford will get an offensive rebound and get fouled, and that is about it. Like even McDaniel, I know he scores a lot, but his efficiency is quite bad. It's barely above 100. And This is a guy who was on that same usage, very efficient at Kansas State, and even at Michigan, more efficient than this. So I don't know if this is going to be Penny's final year. That's always been a weird situation to me where, well, and one, they were a 5 seed last year. So I'm wondering what that might look like there too. But that always felt to me like the coach is sort of in control of his own demise situation. Like he'll be able to call the final date. That being said, I mean, it's hard to, and Memphis fans hate this for some reason, but it's hard to look at the basketball program and the football program, which, like, yes, has not, they're not like a Boise State, for example, but they are routinely very good. And they've now sent, I think, their last 4 coaches to Power 5 programs. Is there a Power 5 program that would hire Penny Hardaway right now?
No, absolutely not. That would be insane.
And yeah,
I mean, I guess prior to this, they had sent Calipari and Josh Pastner to power conference schools. Not Tubby Smith, unfortunately, but they at least had them. Yes, yes, he did.
Yeah.
Well, you finish 160th at Memphis with their resources. That's not great. But yeah, I don't know. It does. I don't know if it's the beginning of the end for Penny, but it certainly is. This season looks like a wasted one for the Tigers. Yeah. All right, back to you, Will, for your third number.
Well, it's going to be an easy one because we got to chat about Wisconsin. And the number is 30, which is their ranking at Torvik since December 1st. So they had a pretty rough November. They got demolished right at the start of December on the road at Nebraska, which I think, looking at the time, we were a little surprised by. And now kind of looking back at it, we're like, well, that's maybe not the worst thing in the world to happen. But that surprise neutral court loss to TCU, that was questionable at the time, has aged okay. Neutral court to Villanova, aging okay. None of their losses are bad, but it's a good time to bring them up. So they beat Michigan on the road on Saturday. Part of that is shooting variance. They shot 15 for 33 from 3, 50% on mid-range jumpers too. So kind of hard to repeat that, I would argue. But by the same token, went board for board with Michigan. Only lost the turnover battle by 1. Got to the foul line as much as Michigan. It was a really great plan by Greg Gard, who I think is, even from Wisconsin's more rational fans, seems to get more heat than he should for me. I've always thought he's not ever going to have the spectacular years that Bo Ryan did, but he's just a very stable, good coach. And, we had kind of counted this Wisconsin team out of the tournament there for a little bit, but with that Michigan win, they're up to 77% to make the field at Torvig. I think that feels about right. And if we get to March and Wisconsin is like a 9 seed or something, that's kind of a dangerous 9 seed to have in your bracket. They don't do very well in the shot volume department, but they launch a ton of threes. And as they did against Michigan, they can kind of turn any game they want into a 3-point variance contest. And that can obviously go very poorly, but in a one-off scenario, it's pretty terrifying to play against.
Yeah, there's basically one guy in their rotation, their 7-foot freshman, Will Garlock, that won't shoot a three. Everybody else will fire away, and he's not even like strongly in their rotation. He's like the 11th or 10th guy. So everybody out there is going to take threes. That makes it a really tough team to defend. Their bigs will shoot so they can space the floor, spread you out, open up driving lanes for Blackwell and Boyd. It just was weird. Before the Michigan game, every outcome was kind of like, all right, they beat the bad teams on their schedule. They lose to the good ones, and sometimes lose really badly to the good ones. BYU, Nebraska, Purdue. And then suddenly that Michigan game happens, and you kind of have to rethink everything we thought about Wisconsin, and the fact that they can play up a little bit and beat a team better than them. That was something they hadn't really exhibited before, and doing so on the road, that was a shocking outcome in so many different ways to me. Just showing Michigan not being unbeatable and Wisconsin being able to step up in class. It throws the Big Ten title race into a wrench, perhaps even like the 1 seed race. Is Michigan going to be able to stay easy peasy above that line going the rest of the way? We'll find out. But a huge win and kind of a season changer for the Badgers there over the weekend in Ann Arbor.
Now, how they build on this going forward is going to be interesting, because tonight, well, as you'll hear this, and we'll get to the result later, of course, they will play at Minnesota, who we've mentioned here for a few weeks as a team on the rise, team playing very well right now. Team, I don't think that they're going to make the tournament or anything, but they're playing like, they're the classic. What is the John Fendler bit? Like the team you don't want to play trademark.
Yes. Well, you don't want to go to the barn right now.
Yeah. I don't know that I've ever really wanted to go to a barn. They don't smell very good.
No. But hey, they've beaten Iowa at home, Indiana at home, USC overtime. This is a tough team to play there, and Wisconsin going to be riding the emotional high. Can they follow it up after that massive win, or is there a little bit of a letdown performance at Minnesota? I think that'll be one to watch, and people already know the answer as you're listening to this.
So, but I quickly, before we get to your next one, after Minnesota, these are their 5 games following: home Rutgers, win; at Penn State, likely win; home USC, home Minnesota, home Ohio State. There is a decent chance that we get to February, and this team that we've been kind of like on for a while, thanks to that Michigan win, could be like 16-6 or 17-5.
And looking really good from a resume standpoint, having that headlining win atop the ledger. So yeah, the Badgers have flipped their season remarkably. After I know I was kind of worried about them, and my colleague Matt had basically buried them at this point, and they say nope, we're alive. All right, my number 3 stat here, Will. This is not meant as a dig at your Vols. This is more a praise of Florida, but Tennessee, the number 2 offensive rebound rate team in the entire country, only grabbed 17% of their misses against Florida over the weekend. And it's just telling how dominant the Gators have been as a 2-way rebounding team. They're number 1 in the country in offensive rebound rate. They're number 2 in defensive rebound rate. They lead the country in rebound margin per game. No surprise there. That always establishes the high floor. What we saw in that game over the weekend was the ceiling. When Boogie Flan plays really well, Xavier Lee was decent. Klavzar hit some shots off the bench. But when one of those guards gives them real playmaking, shot making, he had 4 steals, real defensive impact for Fland. Suddenly this Florida team looks like a national title contender once again, able to maybe defend their crown there. I mean, I'm sure you watched this game closely as a Vols fan. Did that version of Florida surprise you? Especially, I guess, Ruben Chinyelu was an absolute monster on the glass. I thought what they were able to do against the team, take away the real strength of the Vols in the offensive glass, and get Flan to play that well, was an eye-opener for me.
Yeah, I watched it closely, and by the end, I was thinking about how good the blind must have it. Florida, so if you remove all games against quad 4s, like we love to do, plus 16.4 rebounding margin per 100, which is number 1 Actually, sorry, number 2 in the nation behind Michigan State. So you're in really good company there. It's a shame those two didn't play each other, by the way. That would have been a nasty game. But we've said for like a month now, a month and a half, we've been on this for weeks, that if Florida's 3-point percentage even became okay, like we're not asking them to be amazing, but if they just shot 31% from 3 the rest of the way, they'd be a top 10 team. Based on every other number, based on every other thing we've seen, they'd be one of the 10 best teams in the sport. Well, against Tennessee, guess who had a great day? Boogie Fland. Boogie Fland was hitting pull-up jumpers off the dribble. Like any shot he seemed to want, he got. And while it was certainly not wonderful for me to watch, it was good for him because he's really needed that type of game. And I mean, 3 for 6 from 3, 3 for 3 on mid-range jumpers. It is good to have that. It is good to have Klavshar hitting an okay rate. Like 3 of 9 is nothing unbelievable, but that's better. Like it gives you something. And even Xavier Liu, who shot 2 for 7 in this game, I'm recalling at least one that was halfway down and rimmed out. He got a little unlucky on 1 or 2 misses. This is a good basketball team. I floated the trial balloon weeks ago in the Discord, leading up to, I don't remember when this would have been, leading into conference play, when they were asking, for SEC contenders, and people were on Arkansas, and I've kind of made my mark there. Like, I'm not a fan of that, but when I floated Florida, people thought I was joking, and neither you nor I have been joking this whole time. We think, like, alongside Vanderbilt, this is probably the real best team in the SEC.
Yep. And they've got a tricky midweek battle here, going to Oklahoma before going to Vanderbilt on Saturday, which will be a game many people will want to tune into. It's going to be up and down. It's going to be a great test of Vanderbilt against physicality in the paint. Cannot wait for that game. But both Vandy and Florida have to get by midweek tests against the Red River rivals. Vandy's got Texas and Florida's got Oklahoma. But I think they're going to keep ascending there. I've compared them to 2 years ago Alabama, that started with like 5 losses against a tough non-conference, got a 4 seed, made the Final Four. Last year, Arizona started with a lot of tough losses in the non-conference, ended up with a 4 seed. Florida gets a 3 or 4 seed this year. I would not be at all surprised if they're able to get a bunch of wins in SEC play. All right, back to you, Will. Number 4.
Number 4 is -27. This is the on-off rating, or the plus-minus, however you choose to look at it, for one James Nagy at Baylor since he started playing for the team. 78 possessions. He is -27 points. I bring this up because even adjusted for schedule, it's a horrendous rating. He has a very bad turnover rate right now. Doesn't really seem to do much on either side of the ball. Decent rebounder, gets fouled a little bit, and that's about it. This is being brought up for me because we had this whole discussion, and every single college basketball show in America has had this discussion over should he even be playing. Obviously, he was cleared to play. There's been this whole thing of coaches coming out and saying this is wrong, this is bad. And while I agreed in principle, I did get the same feeling I've gotten watching these G League guys sign for teams. I'm not going to really get angry until one of these guys is actually good. And James Nagy, for better or for worse, appears to not actually be very good for Baylor. He has yet to provide a good difference for them on the court. They've lost all 3 games since he started playing for them. And since December 1st, this Baylor team, 76th at Torvik. This is not... I mean, we got to start discussing now, because it seems to be flying under the radar a bit, that Baylor is not only likely, but at Torvik, 83% likely to miss the upcoming NCAA tournament.
Yeah, they're getting like the 99th percentile outcome for Cam Carr, and still don't have a very good prospect heading into the rest of Big 12 play. They're coming off playing 3 of the more physical teams, I would say, just identity-wise. In the Big 12, TCU, Iowa State, Houston, always going to be a little bit of a problem for Baylor, who has struggled badly on the defensive glass this year and has struggled defensively since Jerome Tang left. But that was like ideally the kind of thing that Najee would fix. But with him on the floor, they're giving up a 50% offensive rebound rate. Like that is heinously bad, would be the worst in the country. And I know the competition has been good in those 3 games, but you need something to show up there that is supposed to be the one thing he's really going to fix is their work on the glass. And it's already bad when he's off the floor, but when he's on and they're not getting any rebounds, that sounds so many alarm bells for me, even with the competition they're facing.
And so, like, it's obviously unfair to say, like, oh, just because they added Najee, they've lost all 3 games. That's not the case. I think they would have lost all 3 of these without him. But
Agreed.
this is also like, we're truly in downward spiral potential season ending stuff coming soon, because you just had 2 top. I'm going to just go out on a limb here. I'm going to include Houston going forward as a top 6 team. I think that's what they really are. They're clearly rounding into form. They played their best game of the year on Saturday, I thought. They look awesome. You just got 2 top 6 teams at home in games you have routinely won over the years. Like, home spots for Baylor against these teams have routinely gone very well. I was, at the beginning of last week, my thought was they can probably get one of these 2, not both, but Baylor in my head, if it's Baylor, should be able to get one of these 2. Neither game was close, and
Nope.
both double-digit losses. And now this week, you'll know the result by the time you listen, but at Oklahoma State and at Kansas, this could turn into 5 straight losses and 10-7, 0-5 Big 12 real fast.
Yeah, and
with
then you get really
a lot
worried.
of meat
Texas
left on
Tech
the
waiting.
bone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the after that would be Texas Tech at home, a team that has been, kind of ascending and has a really strong starting 5. It could get ugly for Baylor. I'm going to transition to my next thought, Will, just because you referenced them here within this. The number I have is 6.8. That is Houston's per game turnover margin. It's 3rd nationally. It's tops in the P5. It's just narrowly ahead of Iowa State. So part of this is just praising Kingston Flemings for what he's been for Houston and taking care of the ball, being their highest usage guy, and setting the tone assist to turnover wise. But this isn't quite the same offensive rebounding team as it's been. They're getting there. They're getting close to it, but they're taking a lot of long 2s per usual. They're not getting to the free throw line per usual. And yet, because of this shot volume edge they get via the turnover battle, they look elite once again. They're 15-1. They're 3-0 in the Big 12. They've already won 2 road games in the Big 12. They didn't lose a single Big 12 road game last year. It's really incredible the way their style travels. And I know we were kind of shaky on them early when they were featuring JoJo Tugler in the post and trying to figure that out. But they seem to have figured out their offensive identity with Flemings getting into the lane. The defense is really coming around. They've throttled 3 Big 12 teams so far. Where do you have Houston now, and where do you think the ceiling is, just given some of the emergence that they've gotten from Flemings in the roster here?
Well, like I said, I think they're truly a top 6 team. Since the December started, I did look at this up at Hoop Explorer really quick. You mentioned the Tugler bet. Since then, his usage rate has dropped below 20%, which I think is good. You remember that first, I think, 2 weeks of the season, it was 31% or something insane.
Yeah,
And
it's crazy.
One Juwan Roberts replacement. Flemings is up to 29%. And I think it's been really fun and really educational, I would say, to watch Houston slowly realize that Flemings is the guy. He's their engine. He's the driver. It's not Uzan like last year, and that's fine. Uzan, to his credit, he's not shooting well, and he's really struggled to find that shot all season, but he's still gotten a lot better at being an off-ball player, moving the ball when needed, defends really hard on the other end of the court. I think he's done a really good job in a role he probably didn't expect to play this year. Flemings has been great. Manuel Sharp continues to be awesome. The guy that has taken the big step forward, again, despite like a limited offensive role, is Sinak for me. I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing from him. And the kind of gist of all of this to me for Houston is a lot of guys being okay with sacrifice, which I really like. Like Sinak is sacrificing some on-ball possessions to become a better overall player. Like, he's really taken a step forward defensively, easily their best rebounder on the defensive end of the court. Uzan has sacrificed his role to let Fleming star. You're seeing like some of these start, like Sharp is giving some more minutes to Mercy Miller and guys like that. Even Tugler doesn't mind to see the bench, and because it just means like Khalifa Sacco, who's really started to come on lately, gets more playing time. I like this Houston team a lot. Think they're rounding into form. You would never call any week in the Big 12 an easy week, but until the next time we record, they get West Virginia and Arizona State at home. 2 should-be wins, which would lead into a gargantuan game on January 24 at Texas Tech, with Houston likely 17-1, 5-0 Big 12.
Yeah, Houston, you mentioned it, just like it seems like they're figuring out who they are, with Fleming's being the guy. Tugler's got 15 offensive rebounds in the last 2 games. That's just offensive rebounds. That's remarkable, and shows like what they're doing. They're up into the top 20 in offensive rebound rate. I think they were outside the top 35 last time we recorded. So that they're really buckling down there and finding the identity on the glass. I don't know that they're going to get quite to the level of last year, and maybe they won't even win the Big 12 because Arizona and Iowa State are that good. But Houston remains a national title contender, I think, with what they have.
It is crazy. I mean, I think I'm trying to remember the exact number because I put it in our conference previous thing. I think there are 19 games total, something like that, 19, 20, 21, where 2 of Iowa State, BYU, Houston, Arizona, Texas Tech, and Kansas play each other this year. Like, it is a shame that the rest of the Big 12's whatever. Like, I mean, UCF is entertaining, don't get me wrong, but neither you nor I think of them much as like a, maybe they can sneak into the Sweet 16 with some variance going their way, but that's about it. But to have 6 teams, I know Kansas is fringe, whatever. If Darren Peterson's out there, they're going to be, in contention for the Final Four. You've got 6 legitimate Final Four contenders in this league, and they all play each other a bunch. So it's just going to make every week in this league a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, we're going to talk Darren Peterson and Willstradamus at the very end, because Kansas got a big one hosting Iowa State on Tuesday night, last night when you're listening to this. All right, well, back to you for your 5th number.
Okay. Again, this is all quad 4 games removed. Number 27 is Texas Tech. Number 29 is Iowa at Torvik against top 200 teams. Can you guess who 28th is? I will note we have mentioned them in this show.
Are you leading me somewhere with this? Is it?
It's not
Kentucky,
a Power 5, is
St.
what
John's.
I'll say.
Oh, okay. St. Louis.
Pretty close. Santa Clara.
Wow. Okay. Here we can talk about another G League guy. All right, let's do it.
Yeah. So Santa Clara, I have yet to hear much, if any, buzz about these guys, but 12 games against top 200 competition. They have a top 15 offense. They're 8th in the nation in offensive rebounding against this level of competition. 20th in effective field goal percentage, 57% from 2, 37% from 3. They continue to really impress. They don't have like a signature win. I will say that as their downfall. They really did blow a disgusting game to Arizona State that they should have won. And the Loyola Chicago loss is going to age brutally for them.
Yeah.
That being said, this is a team that continues to, for lack of a better term, beat the ever-living shit out of any team worse than them, it seems. Beat Loyola Marymount, who is not bad this year, for the record, by 31. Beat Portland with ease. Beat Oregon State on the road by 38. I mean, they can, when they turn into the 5th gear and the 6th gear, they can motor away from teams. Like, they can really overpower in a way that I haven't seen the number 3 in the West Coast Conference do in a long time. Not since maybe some of the BYU teams. I bring this up because they got a big week ahead. Home Pacific, whatever. Don't lose to Dave Smart, even though we think Dave Smart's pretty good. Saturday, January 17, home St. Mary's. If Santa Clara can win this game, they'll not only be 16-5 and 7-1 in the West Coast League. They'll have their first quad 1 win of the year, and the 6 games following, they'll all be 7-point favorites or greater, which means they can beat St. Mary's on Saturday. They could get to a game against Gonzaga on Valentine's Day at 22-5. And then we will be talking a lot more about Santa Clara.
Yeah, right now they're sitting 65th in WAB. Different it would be if they had beaten Loyola Chicago, if they didn't have that big anchor dragging down the resume, that Q4 loss. But they've probably been under my radar, how good they've been, especially on the offensive glass, for them to be up there. I mean, you look at their offensive profile and it resembles Houston, the team we just talked about. They're taking long twos and not getting to the free throw line, but they're still good offensively because they just get so many second shot opportunities with the physicality they have up front. Alan Graves has been a monster. Oboye has been a beast. It's a sneaky team out there on the West Coast. They did just lose at Gonzaga last Thursday, but it was competitive the whole way. And like you said, with St. Mary's coming up, they've got a chance to really put a headlining victory atop that resume and give themselves a chance to get into the NCAA tournament at this point.
The fun thing about them, if you run their efficiency profile stuff at Torvik, is that 9 of their top 10 comps are high majors from like top 2 or 3 leagues in the past 10 years. They really don't play like a mid-major style at all. It's very brutal. It's fun. It's very brutalist, and I like watching them play a lot. This is probably not your standard Santa Clara team with like one future NBA guy on it. There's I've heard some stuff about like Elijah Mahi and like maybe like some other things here or there, but like a Christian Hammond or something, or those freshman Alan Graves they have who's very good. But I mean, there's not like your standard, it's this one guy and then the rest of his supporting cast that we're used to with these guys. It's an actual team this year, and I really like them.
Yeah, it's not Brandon Pajimski and Jalen Williams and Adama Ball. They're really balanced and they're physical, and I think that could be what gets them a little more closer to the NCAA tournament picture. Sendik's had some really good teams in Santa Clara, and this one has a chance to be his best, which, considering the talent they've had roll through there, is shocking. Mm-hmm. All right, my next number, Will, is 7th, and that is Keaton Wagler's ranking nationally in BPR for freshmen per Evan Mia. He's behind Cam Boozer, AJ DeBenza, Kingston Flemings, Caleb Wilson, Braden Burries, and Chance Mallory of Virginia. Perhaps he deserves a deeper dive at some point too. But Wagler's in the top 5 of Big Ten Player of the Year for KenPom. He's just been incredible. You could make a real argument he's their best player, make a true argument he's their most important offensive player. For what he does, setting everybody else up, the shot making he has, the patience, steadiness on the ball. For a thin, lanky freshman to come in and essentially be their point guard most of the time, it's just remarkable that he was ranked where he was in recruiting rankings and fell through the cracks so much. They got some hype in the preseason, but I don't think any of the hype even warranted where he is now. Like, I think he's exceeded all expectations. Illinois looks incredible as a result. They're a top 8 team at KenPom and just have had some great performances recently with the smacking of Missouri and kind of rolled Iowa at Iowa, despite what that final score says. Illinois' got a really high ceiling now, and I think Wagler's emergence is a huge, huge part of it.
Yeah, you kind of saw. Okay, one. Did you ever see the movie A Serious Man?
No, I did not.
Amazing movie. The way you said Chance Mallory is the way they say Cy Abelman in that movie. You're like, Chance Mallory?
That sounds familiar. I like know that name, even though I haven't seen the movie. Yeah.
But too, it is really funny to look at the recruiting ranking history for Wagler and see like steadily over the last year of his high school career, as like 247 realized that they really blew it, because he went from 296 to 150th in the span of 1 year.
That's a step up. Yeah, because he wasn't playing AAU. That was always the thing I had heard, is why he was ranked lowly, because he was just playing high school and people weren't seeing him at the showcases.
We have to shout out Kevin Sweeney, who honestly like did more for evangelizing this kid than anyone else for me. I remember seeing him. He went to Illinois practice and then came out of it and said, "We got to start talking about Wagler like right now on Basket Interview. We got to start hyping him up immediately." And even he undersold it, because I think he's Illinois' best player. Honestly, better than he may not be the true driver of the engine, but he's their best two-way piece right now. And that alone kind of explains to me why Illinois is 3rd at Torvik since December 1st. His emergence we haven't really talked about them as like a national title contender, but I think we need to start doing that. Like, I don't know that they can find that 5th or like the 6th gear to do that, but 7th at Torvik, top 20 offense and defense, like all the people love to say this time of year, ahead of some other teams we've seen get way more national title players like Duke, UConn, Houston, even Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, they're 3-point shooting variance came from beating Nebraska, having
Yeah.
the Cornhuskers' only loss on their ledger.
And I don't know. I feel like we should be talking about Illinois way more, along with Wagler. Like, this is, we mentioned earlier the chance that Michigan loss opens up the title race a little bit. And while I would hold back a tad from that, it is notable to me that when I go to not Torvik, Ken Palm right now, there are 4 teams, Purdue, Nebraska, Michigan, Illinois, in whatever order, projected to finish with either 4 or 5 conference losses. If Illinois continues on this path, they are going to make this Big Ten title race really interesting by making it more than just a Purdue, Michigan, and possibly Nebraska race.
Yeah, they've only got Purdue once on the schedule, only got Michigan once on the schedule. So they can be highly contentious in that they get to host Michigan. So they've got a chance to make an impact on that. Like I said, they very nearly beat Nebraska. They very nearly beat Alabama. That was a really good game. They're pretty close to being a 1-loss team and being right in that mix for a 1 seed and true national title contender. And I know Illinois fans are pumped about it, and they should be, because this team's good. I think it was Gavin Buried Trays on Twitter that pointed out how much slower they're playing this year, and they're really crawling offensively in Big Ten play. And it shows Underwood's adaptability with his personnel and maximizing what he's got on his roster. They have done that extremely well this year, and leaning into Wagler as their top playmaker, I think, is a big part of that. But, all right, well, back to you for your 6th number.
20th. This is again since December 1st. Okay, for context here, 19th is Iowa, 21st is Clemson, 22nd is Kansas. Who was 20th since December 1st?
Somebody in the UCF department. I don't know. I don't know.
It's not a Power 5 again.
Okay, and it's not St. Louis. Is it High Point? I know they beat somebody by 70.
New Mexico is a top 20 team since December 1st. It's like the Billy Eichner for $1 name a woman thing. For $1, name a New Mexico player.
Whew, boy, Chris Howell. I'll give you that. Tommy Bouillon.
That's 2. That is,
right.
I would have said Dayton Albury somehow. Okay. That is the extent of the New Mexico players I'm aware of. This is a team truly of cast-offs and misfits. Dayton Albury was more or less, said told by Utah State, we're good. It's okay if you move on. JT Rock, former highly ranked recruit that I think flopped out at 2 different. It was Iowa State and Auburn, right? He didn't do.
Are you confusing him with JT Thor? I think it's just Iowa State.
Thor.
Yeah.
JT Rock. Now he was a decent recruit, but I think he was Iowa State and then yeeted out of there. And then you have Tommy Bouillon and Jake Hall. Also Uriah Tenet. A bunch of freshmen nobody really knows much about.
Antonio Chol washed out at Rutgers. You think Rutgers could use him?
Yeah, Chris Howell was a fine role player, probably the 5th most important guy for UC San Diego last year. And that was the guy we were most confident about on this roster coming into the season. Eric Olin is a freaking miracle worker. They're 13-3, 4-1 in the Mountain West. I think up to 35th or something in wins above bubble. They're running a little hot on opponent threes, 29% allowed from deep, but nothing astonishing. Their coverage defensively, which kind of is, you watch them play and it's man, but it feels zone-ish in a way. It's kind of hard to identify possession to possession, which I think confuses. It's like the old Oakland adage of it confuses opponents as much as it confuses Oakland. Yes. But the thing is, New Mexico knows what they're doing and just does it. I gotten a kick out of watching them, despite the fact that offensively, it feels like they bide their time until they can play defense again. And offensively, this is my friend who has asked to not be identified, who works in college sports, has a metric called toilet ball, which is he tries to identify the toilet ball teams of the year. And Boise State routinely is number 1 in this list. But he texted me the other day and he said, we have a new contender. And he just sent me the picture of the New Mexico logo. New Mexico's version of this is so good defensively that they can kind of win games a lot of different ways. They score, certainly, but they don't really have getaway power. Their scoring is mostly from like defensive turnovers or defensive rebounds, like pushing out off of those. Because once again, in the half court, it can be a little ugly. But I'm really enjoying this Lobos team, man. It's setting up for some really exciting games going forward. Like this Saturday, they play at San Diego State. February 4th, they get Utah State at home. I never anticipated that one of the potential multi-bids in the Mountain West would be New Mexico this year, but that's the way it's starting to trend.
Yeah, the pit is alive again. What a great coaching hire with Olin. We talked on our jump seat about the possibility of Hodgson doing like the double bounce of going to South Florida, then getting up to a P5. Like perhaps Olin should really be in consideration for that too. Nobody looked at this roster and thought it had a chance to be a top 50 team, but they are sniffing it right now. Like we mentioned in the trivia question at the top, in the field per Bart Torvik's T-Ranketology right now, they got a real chance to go dancing. That just was completely out of the realm of possibilities coming into the season. And Olin's teams in Division II and then early at UC San Diego were all about like offense, bomb away threes, be the most skilled team. And now they're winning with defense. Last 2 years, UC San Diego 30th in defense, New Mexico 27th this year. Just the adaptability of a coach to turn and match his team's identity, I really think is one of the best marks of a coach. And Olin has already shown that early on in his career. And remember, he loses Allard, one of his best assistants, because he just stayed at UC San Diego and took that head job. So he's shown all kinds of flexibility as a coach already.
This is not a betting show, but I do think it's worth noting that last 3 years between two different jobs, Eric Olin at 52 and 27 against the Vegas spread. That's absurd.
It's really, really wild. Yeah. It's exceeding expectations at a rate that's completely outrageous.
Like really hard to fathom that being a consistent thing.
All right. My next one is also outside the P5 here, Will. It is 173. That is George Mason's free throw attempt differential this year. Number one in the entire country. George Mason is, maybe the dark-ish horse in the A10 right now. They're not SLU, they're not VCU, but they did just beat the Rams at home. They're 16-1 overall now. Tony Skinn, another coach that's going to get a ton of jump seat talk this offseason. I believe Trilly wrote about him in shirts as being the bells of the ball in the coaching carousel right now. The team just plays smart. You watch them and I don't know who the best player on the team is. The talent isn't some remarkable, overwhelming haul, similar to New Mexico, where you looked at this roster in the preseason, you didn't see another top 100 or top 75 team. And yet here they are. George Mason, schedule has not been good. Fully own that part of it, but they're winning the games that are in front of them. Knocking off VCU was massive. And they've got a chance, man, to get in the mix for the NCAA tournament. I mean, currently at the NCAA's wins above bubble metric, they're 39th. Like they're in the mix. So the Patriots, tip of the cap to Skinn for what he's been able to maximize out of this group.
They always say you don't want to go to war with the Rams, but it seems to me like George Mason did just fine. They went to war with the Rams and won.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think they're fine. No, this is the thing that excites me most about them is their offense, actually, because I knew, we've known the last 2 years Tony Skinn is a really good defensive coach, but what I didn't know is if he could coach like a watchable or good offense. And while it is extremely free throw reliant, they don't turn the ball over. They do a really good job of hunting shots inside the perimeter, and this is one of those compliments that's like hard to quantify, but they know what they are, and I get that sensation a lot of they know what they can do, what they can't, and they don't go outside their bounds. And I like that a lot about them. I admire what he's done there. I feel like we mentioned them in the mailbag as our non-VCU pick of A10 team, or non-VCU SLU pick from the A10 as a team that could be a matchup problem in March. Because we're not going to get a ton of great data on them before it, just because they're scheduled, but because of how slow the game is, because of how foul heavy it is offensively, depending on the draw and depending on who their officials are, that's a real path to kind of draking it up a little bit from last year in a way, just using a team's worst instincts against them. I feel like they're very good at that.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of bodies up front, 6'8", 6'10", 6'11 guys they can throw at you in waves. And then my guy Fat Hill, who I was like, who is that? I didn't realize he had renamed from Jamari Hill at Ball State, which just lives at the free throw line. Would be basically at the top of the national charts in free throw rate if he had played a few more minutes. They have figured out just ways to manufacture points. And again, when you watch them, it's like, okay, they make the right pass, the right defensive rotation. They're just going to annoy you by doing things correctly and not beating themselves. And that's been enough to win 16 games already.
Yeah. Fat Hill and Devin Booker on the same roster.
That's right. Masai Troutman, Jerry Long, like it's a fun little team of guys they've collected from random different places, and Skin's done an incredible job of turning them into this.
Yes.
All right, Will, your final thoughts or your final stat before we get to your put your predictive cap on.
So we started with the last 2 Saturdays, and we're going to finish with the last 2 Saturdays, because these 2 Saturdays are the 2 most efficient Saturdays in the history of college basketball. 109.1 points per 100 possessions on average, 2 record-setting days in the sport. And it's a continued trend of what we saw the opening week of the year and has continued to last the entire season. You go to KenPom right now. Last year set a record through 70 days for efficiency at 105.5 points per 100. This year is blowing that out of the water. It's at 107.7. It is absurd to think that in the last pre-COVID season, this was 99.6 at this point of the season. Field goal percentage on track for an all-time high. Turnover percentage on track for an all-time low. Offensive rebounds, the highest they've been in 11 years. 2-point percentage, going to set a record. 3-point percentage, not a record, but, on the up. Most assists we've seen in games since 2015. Fewest number of charges in history. Highest points per game we've seen since the early 90s. I like saying this because I do think that here there's like a game. You ever heard of this thing, the Super Bowl?
I've heard of it.
Ever heard of that?
It's a big American football game, I believe.
Yeah, like my shitty team's never going to play in it, but like the Super Bowl, like there's a bunch of these people who like parachute in and they start watching college basketball. Like, this sucks because it's not the NBA or whatever. 1, F off. 2, they are wrong. We are seeing consistently, week over week, Saturday over Saturday, the best, highest quality basketball that we have seen in my 32 years. And definitely in the time that we have been conscious of what basketball is.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is NIL and keeping players in school, bringing in more talent internationally, because guys want to get the payday and play here instead of abroad or in the G League or wherever it is. And we go back to the bold predictions pod before the season. Will, I said this wouldn't be the most efficient season, and that is so aggressively incorrect at this point. Really shameful to look back. And I thought the loss of the 5th-year COVID seniors would undermine the talent, and that has been the opposite of the case. I think coaches are approaching things smarter, more efficiently from the offensive end, and it's a trend across basketball. I believe I remember this stat correctly from something that was tweeted, that the Kings with the worst offensive rating in the NBA would have had the best offensive rating in like 2001. Mm-hmm. Because the analytical side of it and the shot selection side of it, and I guess how things are officiated, all of that has changed so much to help the offense. And college basketball is no different. It's been a really offensive sport this year, and it's not just because of a bunch of rule changes. There's a lot of really good talent on the floor, and that's how you get scoring to go up like it is. It's been a joy to watch college hoops this year.
Yeah, it feels like every single night there's a really great game you can turn on, like in every time slot. Like these Monday nights, they're a little light, but the rest of the week, even like Saturdays are becoming almost overloaded to an extent of like, oh man, there's so many good things that I just have to accept I'm not going to see them all. Or like Tuesdays and Wednesdays especially have been really good this year. This has been a historically good season. And for this to happen, I don't know if you felt the same way, but for me, after a college football season, I was really underwhelmed by and kind of disappointed by in terms of my entertainment level. I thought it was just like really dry, like the narratives were not good. this college basketball season's been a real breath of fresh air. Like everybody seems to be pulling the boat in the same direction. When the negative headlines are all like off the court shit, like the James Najee or the G League stuff, I can kind of shove that out of my mind when the games are as good as they've been, and they have been this good.
Yep, and we've got a lot more ones to be excited about. The top of the Big Ten hasn't really played itself yet. The top of the Big 12 hasn't played itself yet. We've got that Florida Vandy game looming in the SEC. I think it's just going to get better and better. So very, very pumped for continuation of conference season and getting into March. All right. Well, I feel like that would have been a good capper. I almost don't want to do my final number because that was such a good summation of what we've seen.
You can't leave me on the sentimental note here.
All right, fine. I won't do it. My last number here is 31, and that is the combined winning margin for St. John's on the road against two top 60 Big East teams, Creighton and Butler. The last time Creighton lost by 15 plus at home was January 30th of 2019. Shockingly to Chris Mullen, St. John's. I was blown away by that. That was the last time Creighton lost by 15 points at home. Yeah, I couldn't believe that at all. But the interesting thing here for St. John's is we've talked about, well, you predicted they'd use a ton of different starting lineups. Well, they cycled back to the starting lineup they used in the opener with Jackson, Sellers, Hopkins, Mitchell, and Zuby, and they've looked outstanding the last two games. They played a little more lefty Leotopoulos, a little less Josen Sannon, which I think might be a good thing overall, given Sannon's shot selection, general indifference to defense. That's what I'm looking for. But the Johnnies are now 18th in KenPom. They're inside the top 40 in WAB. If you're averaging their resume and quality metrics, they're like a 6 seed right now, 6 or 7, and potentially continuing to move up. This team got buried pretty early, but they're now 11-5, the same record as Florida, Tennessee, Kansas, Alabama. I think St. John's is going to be okay here, Will.
They'll be fine. It's so funny after an entire offseason of selling on them and saying like, hey, this team you're putting 5th, they don't have a lineup that can play together. Like they deleted the best part of their lineup, which was perimeter defense. They didn't replace it with anything special. We are now at the point of the season where I'm like, I'm buying all the stock you're selling. Give me your St. John stock because you're giving me an amazing buy low opportunity with this team. They don't play in a great power conference, probably 5th of 5. They are, I'm looking at the rest of their schedule. They're going to be underdogs in what looks like 3 more games. I think Villanova's going to be a coin flip. They're kind of same with home UConn. That could flip by the time it gets there to where they're like a tiny favorite. But point being, we could have all this, stuff about them and all this complaints, but they just went on the road, beat 2 top 60 teams with relative ease, I might add. And we could have all of these complaints, all of this stuff. And then it could be the start of the Big East tournament. And we're saying, oh, hey, St. John's went 16-4 in the Big East and it's 23-8 overall.
And suddenly, yes. I mean, yes, it's probably not the top 5, top 10-ish team that they got hyped in the preseason, but if they're a top 15 team with a little more offensive potency this year, because they're 60th nationally in 3-point percentage and they're taking a few more threes, they still got Rick Pitino on the defensive sidelines. They're forcing turnovers. They got a lot of length in athleticism there. I just rebel against the idea when St. John's was 9-5 and had blown that game at home to Providence that they were doomed and they were written out as of the potential second best team in the Big East conversation. And suddenly a week later, I think it's pretty clear that the second best team in the Big East. All right. That is it for our thoughts. Will, we've got to finish up with your predictions for the games that have already happened for the listeners. It is a huge Tuesday, so we better, hopefully we get your A game here, your true Willstradamus hat. We got Iowa State at Kansas, Virginia at Louisville, Florida at Oklahoma, UConn at Seton Hall in the old Dan Hurley Bowl. Do they lose 5 in a row at Seton Hall? That's what I'm curious about. What results are speaking to you, Mr. Warren?
All right, I got 5. So the big one on Super Tuesday here. Do they still call it that? Or is that gone by? I remember Big Monday, but I remember Super Tuesday was a marketing.
I hope they still call it that. I know that was always like the big election thing too, right? Super Tuesday.
But they definitely stole it for basketball at one point.
Good. I hope they did. Keep it.
Better. That's a lot more pleasant. I am going with the old scheduled loss here. Give me Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse in some sort of shooting regression plus like Peterson goes Peterson mode plus like Bill Self voodoo game. Like feels like a Kansas by 3 type of event where you're like, Kansas didn't actually play well, but they did win this game.
Surely there won't be a mysterious, mystifying call or two down the stretch of that game.
Oh, that would never happen at Allen Fieldhouse. The games before that, I am going to go with the Virginia Cavaliers to get it done on the road at Louisville by 4. I don't like the spot here where it's like Louisville slept walk against BC over the weekend, then kind of got shocked into waking up. But the injuries question, it seems like Conwell's playing, but I don't know that I've seen that fully confirmed. Brown is obviously still out. So it kind of seems like Louisville's a little bit of an incomplete thing at this point. I won't be shocked if they win, though. Give me Michigan State at home over Indiana. I am going to say UConn gets it done.
Wow. Okay.
I know. Big moment here. We'll say it's going to be an unpleasant game, like UConn 63-55.
That sounds perfect for these two. Yes.
Not a game I want to watch. And then we're going to go Florida by 14 on the road at Oklahoma. I don't like this Oklahoma team at all. Really, really unpleasant defense to watch. And just vibe in general. Kind of feels like a team that kind of wants to be there, but mostly does not.
Yeah. When I'm looking for teams that travel on the road to, rebounding is such a huge part of it. Like, can you maintain a shot volume even or definitely have an edge? And Florida, I think, is going to work the Sooners on the glass. So I like that one too.
I'm not seeing any upsets here. Let me try and spring one.
Kansas was an upset. I'm giving you that. So was Virginia.
4 point. Do you think 4 points is an upset? Because I
think
they're underdogs by 4.
If they're underdogs, it's an upset, man. I'm giving it to you.
Okay. I'm willing to hear that one out. Let me try and pick a good one for upset special, and then
I'll say I think your Tennessee Vols win by 15. I think that's a physical smash against Texas A&M.
Slow bleed out type of game. We covered it in the preseason, but Bucky's not great as an underdog. I'm not seeing any I really love. Let's go. How about we see a little Virginia Tech upset on the road at SMU? I think that'd be interesting.
Ooh, I like that a lot. Yeah, SMU has got a couple big wins under their pockets, but Virginia Tech could be, with some of their high end talent. They got Toby Lawal back recently. Perhaps the Hokies get it done there. All right, that is it for us here at Stats by Will and Jim. Will, thank you. Anything else for the people before they go?
No, thank you guys for reading and for loving what we do. We've really enjoyed putting out these watch lists lately. A lot of good content on the site. I always, always, always love when we get messages in the Discord and it's like, do you guys have a website? We get like one of those a week. Please make sure one happens this week.
Yep, we sure do. We've got a website. Check it out if you can. Tell a friend if you haven't. Thank you to Trilly Donovan for setting up Basket Under Review, giving us the opportunity here to do the show. To Corey Aldis, the producer behind the scenes. Home Field Apparel for our sponsorship. And Sam Freyer for our graphics. That's it, everybody. Enjoy the basketball this week and this weekend. And we'll see you again next week, Wednesday morning.